Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Fireside Chats with Shruti Kapoor. In these Fireside Chats, I bring inspirational people from the tech community and talk about their ups, but not just their ups, but also the downs and the struggles they've been facing in their tech careers to share just a little bit human side of being a tech worker in this community and show you that it's not just all glamour, but there's also the hardships that people are facing every day, just to make you feel a little bit more together and not alone in this hard tech world, because it can get pretty intimidating sometimes. So today I am very excited to introduce Tejas Kumar and bring him on the stage. Tejas is a great speaker. If you've seen any of his talks, you know what I'm talking about. He's so energetic on the stage. I got to experience the most recent talk by Tejas at React Brussels, and he explained server components. And I feel like the way he explained server components, I was just like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now I get it. And I feel like Tejas has this way of explaining like really difficult concepts in a very nice and easy to understand way. And I think he built server components from scratch, like the entire framework from scratch. And I was just like, okay, finally I can do it on my own. And now I get it. So I'm very excited to introduce Tejas Kumar and bring him on stage. Hey
Hello, it's good
Tejas,
to be here.
so
Hi,
glad to
Shruti.
have you.
It's
I
nice
know
to
we've
see
been
you again.
talking. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I love that intro music. I was actually sitting here like dancing to it while it was playing.
I know, right? I'm also dancing a little bit. I'm just like, I wish I could do like Bhangra while this is playing, like on stage. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, like, I am so glad that I got you on the stage here, virtual stage here. And I've been talking about this for so long. And we met in like different conferences and we shared our struggles and we shared about like our job issues and things that were happening. And so I'm so glad that we were able to bring that up on stage and share that with the rest of the audience. Before we get started, do you want to do a quick intro of yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tejas. Shruti actually did an amazing intro of me. I do talks. I help companies with developer relations and go to market and just have good relationships. And I also, I honestly, I this may sound a little bit self-congratulatory, but I was reflecting recently. I have a practice of reflecting, and it occurred to me that I'm a fairly generous person. And what I mean by that is I tend to give, I spend most of my life giving than taking. And part of that is the community work that I do. So like talks, but also being in various discords and on social media and on GitHub, just making a bunch of open source stuff that people can use. Most recently, I made an open source tool that can generate subtitles from any video. And it's just like
Ooh,
npx, yeah, it's like npx gen subs, and put the video file and you just get subtitles. Um, and it
oh,
uses
that's
like
super
on,
cool.
yeah, and the cool thing is it uses on device machine learning. So there's no sorry, on device machine learning models, I should say. And there's no, it works fully offline, so there's no dependency on like chat gpt or anything. It's just, it's,
Oh.
you own the data fully. So
Oh, cool. That's awesome. So, like, if you're hosting your videos on your own site, you can have the subtitles generated instead of having to rely on like YouTube subtitles.
correct. And also, like when you upload videos to X, formerly Twitter, for example, like they give you the option to upload an SRT file, like a subtitle file.
Right.
But how do you get that? And
Yeah.
so I actually just made it for myself because I often share videos on these platforms that don't give you subtitles for free. And I was like, how do they do it? And so I built a way to generate it, and then I just get an SRT file and I upload it to like LinkedIn and X and other things. So
Oh my God, that is amazing. You have to share the link. I'm going to put it in the show notes as well. But that's
sure.
great for accessibility because that's like one of the pain points. Like subtitles are generated by YouTube, which are okay, like better than nothing, but it's not perfect. And so, like
Right.
having an SRT file generated and something that you can edit as well. Oh, that's great.
Exactly.
So good for
And the
accessibility.
cool thing is it works with multi-language. So you could do Hindi if you want. You could do Bulgarian, like whatever. And it just works. And of course, the other languages are not. Unfortunately, tech is a bit racist. So the other languages aren't as well represented as English, but they give you a starting point and an SRT file, and then you can go in and, like you said, edit it and so on.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Damn. I wasn't even planning on talking about that, but that sounds so amazing. Great day for accessibility.
And then there's another thing that sorry, now we're on a tangent, and I know we have a lot of things to talk about, but I mean, and this is not plugging, again, this is just, I want people to know it's available to them because I use it, which is a tool that, so every video production app in the world. Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve, Premiere, whatever. They have this concept of markers. You can put
Hmm.
markers in video, and then you give your
Yeah.
marker a label, right? And then you can export them to a file like a .edt file, which is .edit, and it's literally just like an SRT file. It's timestamps and markers, but it's a specific schema. And so I built a little open source tool that will take an EDT file and give you YouTube chapters like timestamps just for free from
Ooh.
EDT file. Yeah, so this stuff is I just make stuff to help myself and then share it. And
That's
it's
awesome. Okay, because I hate adding chapters. I feel like after I add a YouTube video, the most boring part is adding chapters and going back in and out. Ah, okay, that's going to be super helpful. Like that's not a tangent. I feel like that's a great one because I feel like that kind of talks about your creative process as well, which was going to be my first question is tell us a little bit about your creative process. And now that you're building these tools, which are kind of also helping you, your YouTube editing process and SRTs as well. So tell us a little bit about your editing process, not editing, your creative process, how you think about new ideas. I feel like your talks are so like easy to reach to the audience. They're so approachable. Like I was telling in the intro, we were talking about server components, which is such a complicated topic. And so many people have tried talking about it as well. But I feel like it's one of those topics which is just like so hard to grasp, even for experienced engineers. But you explain it in a way which was so approachable and so understandable. So tell us about how you like put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's creating content for other folks, whether it's your YouTube talks or whether it's your conference talks.
yeah. I see what the current zeitgeist is. So like what are people talking about? And I look for, do I understand this?
Hmm.
And I look for like, is this a complex thing? And I'm fairly sensitive to like imposter syndrome around topics. And there's multiple reasons for that. Historically, I was in my career, I was like bullied for not knowing things, and I was called a junior engineer, but like derogatory,
Hmm.
in a derogatory way, not that's actually my position and things like
All
that.
right.
And I've seen people in very senior positions not fully understand something and then use their limited understanding to be like, oh, you don't even know that, and make people feel like even worse about themselves. And so anyway, I'm
Yeah.
sensitive to all of this. And with a topic like React Server Components, it's a pretty esoteric topic, right? Like, what does it mean? Because the name isn't even true to it. Like, server components don't just execute on the server; they execute at
Right.
static build time, for example. And so it was in the zeitgeist. There was a lot of confusion and questions around it, even within myself. I didn't understand this, and I have this like desire to obsess. It's not a desire to obsess, pardon me. I have this obsession with things that I don't understand, and I really enjoy the pursuit of knowledge. Like if React Server Components is an onion, then I really enjoy like peeling back the layers, and I cannot be comfortable until I understand it.
Hmm.
And of course, understanding something is a continuum, right? You don't just understand something binary
Yeah.
style.
One and done.
Right, exactly. So I get obsessed until I understand sort of the top contour. Like, okay, I kind of get it, and then I go to sleep, and then I wake up, and I'm like, but wait, now I have like 18 more questions,
Hmm.
and then I obsess until those are answered, and then so it's just like recursive questions until at some point I get to this is where the CPU is, and this is where things cross the boundary between software and hardware. Okay, cool, 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 cool. And for some reason, I haven't really been that interested in hardware. So once you tell me this is kernel level happening at the operating system, I'm like, okay, cool. At that point, it becomes electricity, so someone else can deal with it. So yeah, I tend to obsess, and then once I learn something, you know, I I've had to adapt growing up to be a reasonable communicator, and I have some communication skills, and so I'm like, okay, I know this stuff. There's a lot of people who have the same questions as me, and this is
Hmm.
not just my opinion. Like I see it, I see the questions, so I'm now in a position where I've done the work, I've done the research, I've asked the people, and I can share.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of where that comes from.
Okay, that's great that you shared that, it's not just your opinion, it's something that other people are asking. I'm curious, where are the forums where people can go? You said you do your own research, so I'm guessing blogs and stuff. But where are the what forums do you typically use where you can ask people questions and figure out that other people are also asking similar questions?
That's a really great. So I'm on X formerly Twitter. That's the. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. I had to get WhatsApp for work, but I stay away from Meta stuff. And that's not to say Meta is evil or something. I live in Europe, and Europe has opinions about Meta and Google and things like that. So anyway, I try as much as possible to just be minimalistic. But X is this thing that I haven't been able to get rid of because it's
It's so useful,
it's the town square of the world.
especially for tech world.
Yeah, right. And so I look at what people are talking about, and if a lot of people are talking about server components, then what that means is just by the volume of people talking about it in there's probably questions. So that's my kind of I look at, okay, what are the questions? And I think a great, like, really practical example of a good question I discovered was, people, the React core team tells people server components execute on the server, and client components cannot import server components. And a lot of people ask the question, okay, why is that? And so I ask myself, why is that? And so then I go ask Dan Abramov, why is that? And he'll explain it to me. And I've developed a skill over the years where sometimes when very smart people like Dan explain things to you, or to me, I have a tendency to go like, I don't get it, but I'm going to say I do, so I don't look dumb.
Right. Which
I
a lot of
don't
people do.
Yeah, and I've trained myself to not do that. Like I literally, I'm like, look, I'm really sorry. I'm probably harassing you at this point with all the follow-up questions, but like, please, can you clarify what you mean by it imports the module from the bundler's graph?
Right.
I was like, what? And then he explains to me, yes, every bundler has a big JavaScript file in your browser, and it says at this index, this is the module. So then the client component imports that from the JavaScript bundle that's already loaded. And this is cool because I didn't know that. So that's what I mean. I think it's a combination of listening for the questions and sort of this, like, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Where a lot of people are talking about something, there's probably questions. Hearing those questions, asking them of myself, and if I can't answer them, ask experts like you and like Dan and like others. And then I think in a respectful and kind way, harass the experts until you're satisfied. Because I've left discussion, Shruti, where really smart people have explained things to me and I didn't get it. And I left those discussions feeling so like I failed. I
like you feel
failed to.
about yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's because I lied to myself and to
Right.
them, and I came away with no information after that. So
Right.
it's just like a loss on loss on loss, and it honestly, like, I remember times where I've been very, like, socially rejected. It feels like that, even though I was the one rejecting myself in those scenarios. So
Right.
I've learned that maybe if somebody is willing to be patient with me, just asking a million questions is going to serve me and the other person better. So
Yeah. That's such an important thing that you'll outline, which is like asking questions until everything makes sense to you, which I know it happens like in things like conference talks, like public forums, but also happens at work a lot as well, especially if you're like in a new project, or you're learning from somebody, or you're in a new company. I think like new things occur all the time, and oftentimes we have this feeling, we feel like if we ask questions, people are going to think we're dumb, and this is just something that we're supposed to know. But like finding the confidence to keep asking questions until it makes sense to you, I feel like it's such an important skill that one needs to learn in tech career, because things change all the time, things are new all the time, there's never going to be a time where you're going to know everything. And most likely, if you have a question, other people would also have the
yeah.
same question, so you're kind of doing like the audience a favor by asking the questions for everyone.
Right. And also, I think making it really practical to develop that skill of asking questions until it makes sense is what serves me really well, is because I know, okay, two things. I know how it must feel for the other person to be like bombarded with questions, because I myself sometimes get bombarded with questions, right? And
Right.
sometimes people just bombard me with questions assuming that I have nothing else going on in my life and I need to respond to this DM immediately. And if I don't respond to the DM, then people will go find some random post of mine and reply to it saying, "Hey, I DM'd you, by the way." Um, and I feel like that doesn't sit well with me because it shows
Yeah.
some entitlement to my time.
Right.
Versus like when I remember this in London, I was with Dan and I was like, "Can you please explain client components to me?" And what helps me and helps the other person is when I make it very clear, listen, you don't have to do this. I know your
Right.
time is super valuable. I'm probably being annoying. Just please put up with me because I'm really curious. And if you can't, that's okay. Like you don't have to, you don't have to really. This is
Yeah.
just I'm asking for really a portion of your life because time is the unit of life, right? And so
Yeah.
is oxygen, and I'm asking for both for this exchange. And so I'm not entitled to it, but I know it's valuable. And if you'll let me, I just have questions and really, humbling myself and I
Hmm.
think humbling oneself and really treating the other person as you want to be treated really helps me with that.
Yeah.
And every single time I ask questions and people go like, no, 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 that's fine. I love I was talking to Ashley Williams the other day. She Ashley, has a company called Axo, Rust company that is building some great tools in the space, and was talking about the differences between npm and Cargo, which is Rust's npm. And turns out
Hmm.
there's many differences. And I asked one question, and Ashley kept talking, and I was like, oh, I hope I'm not taking too much of your time, but I have more questions. And Ashley was like, no, 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 I love talking about this. And it worked,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think just being respectful to a fault serves me very, very well.
Yeah, which is a great point as well, because I feel like a lot of people in the community also have these questions, and they may DM people like Dan Abramov and then come back and feel dejected, like, oh, they didn't reply back to my message and nobody responds back. But the thing is, like you said, everybody is so busy and everybody is occupied with a million other things. So perhaps your DM was just not even surfaced in their messages or whatever, but maybe reach out to them in other places also, like having, like coming up with that perspective, or like coming up with that approach of, I'm taking your time, so being humble and thanking them for their time in advance. I feel like I think that's a great way to kind of approach asking questions.
And I would add to that also, at some point there needs to be an appropriate like signal to noise ratio. We're engineers, we,
Hmm.
we talk in signal to noise. And your question needs to be a quality question because it cannot be a quantity questions get treated like, the dependabot pull requests on GitHub projects when they pile up. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to close all of these. um, you shouldn't do that, but like sometimes I honestly, I'll confess, I sometimes come to my email inbox and there's literally 1,000 emails in there, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, delete all.
Yeah.
And then people like reach out to me like 3 days later and they're like, I hope you didn't miss my email. I was like, oh no,
Probably
I must
did.
have. Yeah, right. But if there's so much quantity of questions coming at you,
Yeah.
then your question that you hope gets answered needs to be extremely high quality. And then you fall down a rabbit hole of, okay, what makes a really high quality question?
Right.
And I think if we make it practical, um, a high quality question is not like, hey, explain the React reconciler to me.
Hmm.
um, okay, then what is a high quality version of that? Is, so I've looked at the reconciler, I
Right.
understand virtual DOM, I understand real DOM, but I know reconciling in English means you take the virtual, you put it on the real, but what functions do that? Like, so making the question more specific and showing that you've
Yeah.
done your own research
Some
to the
work.
best of your ability. Exactly.
Yeah.
um because otherwise it sounds like, hey, give me a free lunch.
Yeah,
and
totally.
and you have to ask at that point, what have you tried? Have you even put any
Yeah,
effort into this? Because you're asking me to put an effort where you haven't yet.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I think that's a great point, right? Because like when you ask such a big, broad question, it's also very hard for the other person to answer that question. Also, maybe they've already answered that question in a blog post, in a YouTube video, or like some other source. And so when you share a specific question and then show them that you've already done the work and where you're stuck, it makes it a lot easier
Yeah.
to help you. So help them help you.
And this is exactly how I treat mentoring. So I do mentor a few people, and these people will come to me, right? They're like, "Hey, can you be my mentor?" And I'm like, the first question is always, "What does that mean to you?" Because
Right,
mentorship means so many different things to different people, and some people it literally means like, "You help me get a job,"
right.
and
Yeah,
and I was like, I don't know about that because
that's the end
the
goal.
right. And the way I do mentoring, the way I've been mentored, the way I've seen mentorship even defined, I think in some books, I think it was a Brene Brown book. It was one of the books. Was, you're like the speed boost in Mario Kart. as a mentor.
Hmm.
So the characters driving, they're
Right.
doing everything, but sometimes they fall behind, or sometimes they just outright get stuck. And you're
Right.
this person who's maybe a bit more like is a bit ahead in the career, is a bit been around for longer, whatever it may be, and you know enough to get them unstuck, and then they
Hmm.
continue driving, right? And this is what I tell people who ask me to mentor them. Is I'm like, listen, if you come to me when you're stuck, I will drop everything and unstuck you, and then I expect
Hmm.
you to keep going.
Yeah.
And that has worked out quite well. For example, some people, I probably shouldn't name them because I don't know if they want people to know I mentor them, but they do like conference call for papers submissions, and before they submit it to conferences like React Miami or whatever, they'll be like, "Hey, I have some abstracts and titles. What can you have a look in? I'm a bit
Hmm.
stuck with ideas," and so we work on those together. So and it shows me that they do the work, because like one guy, like he wrote an essay. So you have title, you have abstract, and then you have like your talk description, which is long.
Yeah. Yeah.
This dude like spent probably a week on that, and I think that's really beautiful. It shows I care about this, and I'm not expecting you to give me a free lunch.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that's a really important tip you gave out mentoring as well, because a lot of people want mentors, but they're not really sure what to get out of it. Like getting a job is an end goal, but how do you get there? And where in that process are you stuck? Sharing that bit with your mentor is so important. So I love the bit that you shared, like it's kind of like the speed boost. So you are on the journey by yourself. The mentor can help you unstuck, but you have to come with the problem that you're facing right now.
Yeah.
Actually, that brings a great question. That brings another question in my head, which is people want to find mentors. What is a great platform they can find mentors, and where can they find you as a mentor?
Oh, that's a great question. They can find me as a mentor on X. I I'd say slide into my DMs, but once again, right, there's quantity, and so if you decide to DM me, the quality will have to be there. And I don't I'm not saying this to sound like exclusive, like, oh, I only work with great people, um but legitimately, like it's a very large list of unread things that it doesn't even come to my inbox. Like they put it in some message requests thing that's really full
Yeah,
and is increasing in depth every day, and it's just hard to parse. It's not that I'm
yeah,
like exclusive, it's genuinely hard to parse. And so if I skim it and if I see someone going, hey, I've done all the work, I'm committed, I care, and I just need to be unstuck in this one specific. This actually happened. Like there was someone who was submitting some talks and was like, I don't know what it is. I just always
hmm,
get my CFPs rejected. I have no idea why.
hmm,
Um, and I said, okay, let's look at them. And I did, because that's an interesting problem. And I asked him, how many CFPs did you even submit? Many,
hmm,
multiple to the same conference, even like three to a and everything's always shot down. Similar people can't find a job and they go like, is it my resume? And I'm
hmm.
like, I don't know, let's take a look. And so you see, like it's a specific thing. It's like I've tried everything and I'm stuck. And this is
Yeah,
extremely compelling for me as a mentor, because I don't want anyone to be stuck without, like, feeling powerless without any choice. So
yeah,
as long as you have power to use, I'd encourage you to use it. But I don't think anyone in this world really should be like held down outside of their control. And I'm happy to
yeah,
come and like lift weights off people's shoulders if that's the case. So
yeah. And that's what mentors are for, helping you unstuck.
yeah.
Cool. Actually, like, I really want to talk about one of the struggles that you've talked previously online as well, which I feel like when people see you on stage, they don't realize the big struggle that you have in your everyday life, which I would love if you could talk about a little bit. You have like this high energy on stage, but you are also going through hemophilia every day. So tell us a little bit about what it is, how long you've been experiencing this, and how does it impact your everyday life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say it's not such a big deal now. And that's why I moved to Germany. So I live in Germany. I'm currently in Berlin, and I moved here with a tech job. And for people who aren't interested, I just say I moved here for work, but I actually moved here for healthcare. Germany has the best healthcare in the world, period. No questions. Um, it's just good. And okay, what does that mean? Well, I have, as you mentioned, hemophilia. Hemophilia is a genetic bleeding disorder where there is no cure. And it has a variety of severities. What the condition entails is that once you start to bleed, you do not stop bleeding until you effectively lose all your blood and die. Um, I have the most severe kind of this, where you might think, okay, just don't get cut. But human beings, you and me, bleed all the time. We're like constantly breaking blood vessels inside our. So one time, I'm not
Like
even making this
working
up. Like
out.
yeah, like one time I waved at someone. I was just hi, and this movement caused me to bleed into my elbow.
Oh no.
And of course it doesn't stop, right? So it swelled up, it got really big, and I lost a lot of blood. And also, without being too, I hope this is not too graphic, but joints like the elbow are a ball in the socket, and when blood gets in there, it kind of pulls them apart and sort of dislocate. It's very, very painful. And
Hmm.
I've also been in the emergency room from opening heavy doors, from walking around with a backpack with a heavy laptop on it, everything. We just bleed all the time. And for you, it would stop all these little actions. But for me, you start internally bleeding from something tiny, and then you're dying.
Hmm.
And the health, there is treatment for it. The treatment costs, what I take today costs 3,000 US dollars, I'd say, per week. What I used to take cost 10,000 US dollars per week. And that's why I live in Germany, because even the 3,000 US dollars per week, I don't pay it. We have a great universal healthcare system. And everybody who pays into this big nationwide pot, they redistribute it and give it to me. I have plenty of
Hmm.
friends who are like athletes. They're very healthy. They never go to the doctor, but they still pay that insurance. And it basically comes to me. Um, Growing up, I grew up in Qatar. And there, the treatment model was, we'll save your life if you're dying for free. Otherwise, good luck.
Oh
Um,
shit.
yeah, and so you can imagine, like I would, on Monday go to school, walk up some stairs, maybe walk back to the school bus. That Monday night, I'm already sensing, oh, I'm bleeding internally. I can feel it. Look at my elbow; it's the size of my head. Look at my knee; it's completely destroyed. But there's nothing I can do. So I endure the pain of blood loss. And Tuesday, and when it gets really bad, I lose a lot of blood. And at some point, it's a medical emergency. I go to the accident and emergency, the ICU. They save my life because I'm critical. And then they're like, okay, good luck. Go and then I go back to school on Monday, and it just like repeats. That was a total of 18 years.
Oh my
And
god.
so at some point I was like, I can't live like this anymore. And so I found a startup in Berlin that was willing to hire me, and I was like, yes, 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 I'll be there, whatever you need. And I came to Berlin, went straight to the doctor, and I was like, listen, I have this thing, you don't even know me, but like, can I get those free drugs? Thanks. And so I did, and now life is good. So I mean,
Oh
I say
man.
I'm not cured. When I say life is good, what I mean is I need to inject the medicine into my veins every Monday. So today, and if I
Hmm.
don't, then I die. So that's, but by that, life is good, because I remember to inject every Monday except today. And today I didn't inject. I'm actually going to do it after this.
Do we have to
And
stop so you can go inject? Because I'm totally okay
no,
to
no,
do that.
it's fine, it's fine. And I actually fell today also, and
Oh my
like
god,
have a.
Tejas, you're scaring me.
It's fine. It's fine. I have the medicine. It's all good. It's under control, and that's what I mean. Like, I'm living my best life because it is under control from what was previously extremely chaotic. If this happened in Qatar, things
Yeah,
would be very, very bad. So yes, that's
right.
that's kind of the backstory. As you can imagine, lots of trauma, mental illness, but also lots of positive adaptation. Like, my communication skills, my coding skills come straight from there, straight
Hmm.
from there. So it's
Tell us
not a
about it.
curse. Yeah. So like, my brother is healthy. He doesn't have my thing, and it's he got lucky because it's genetic. Like, you get it from
Hmm.
your mom. Um,
Right.
and so he went to school every day, did his thing, whatever. And he's I'm thankful he's quite successful today. But he he ended up like studying commerce and doing a bachelor of commerce, and now he's a tax advisor and things. But there was this point of like, what should I study? And I feel like a lot of people have these choices to, what should I do, and then they go study
Yeah.
management or something. And for me, like, the only thing I could do was type on a keyboard, right? Because that
Hmm.
involves very little movement, and I'm sitting for the most of the time, so I'm not walking around injuring my knees. And you're very controlled. And so we had a computer, Prince of Persia, the old one. I would play that. At some point, got bored of games, and I was like, how do you actually make a game? And so I started playing with code at 8 years of age, and didn't go
Wow.
to school. Yeah, I didn't go to school. I didn't go to college. I only went to school for writing exams. My parents
Mm.
would go to like my classmates' houses, take their notebooks, photocopy them. I would study from people's notes. Um, and this was my whole life. And so, like when I was 10 years old, I got a diploma in in object oriented C++. And at this point, everybody was like, "What? You're 10 years old? I guess your whole future is decided. You're going to be in code." Turns out, yes, it chose me. Um,
Oh, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and so can you imagine, Shruti? Like, look, I appreciate that this thing is about how the engineering life is not all glamour,
Yeah.
um, but it is a lot of glamour. There's also a dark side, but there's a lot of glamour, and I feel so extremely thankful and blessed that despite my horrible medical condition and all this trauma, that I get to live this ridiculously, embellished, fancy tech
Mm.
life. When like I should have been dead. On it, like when I made it to the ninth grade in school, my mom was like, "Oh my gosh, you're in the ninth grade? I didn't expect you to live this long." She said that
Oh,
because people with my thing, they don't, unfortunately. Um,
right.
but code made a way. It's wild. And I only learned how to code because of the disease, because otherwise I would have gone to
Mm.
school and played sports and did all the normal child stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's wild.
And now you're in Berlin because you can code and your code got you, like your disease got you to learn code. It's amazing how you're here and like living your best life, but still on this like Monday thing that you have to get it done, right? It's like a constant stress. I don't know. I feel like this is so inspirational to hear because this is such a big challenge in your everyday life. And I feel like it's very normal for people to feel really, really low and kind of like lost hope and lose all of their hope if they go through something this traumatic throughout their life. How do you keep your spirits up and how do you go day by day, day after day with this thing at the back of your head always bothering you, yet doing such an amazing job in tech? How do you keep the
Yeah.
spirits up?
That's a really good question. Especially, I noticed today in the news that Spotify laid off, what is it, 17% of all their employees. That's
Oh my
like,
God.
that's nearly, if my math is correct, that's nearly 700 people lost their jobs today. Um, Today being December, today being, you're probably thinking about Christmas, you're going somewhere with your
Yeah.
family, boom, there's no income. Oh my gosh. How do you keep your spirits up in that, right?
Yeah.
Um, I have a mother was who is, I would say, she's pretty religious, and she would tell me things like, hey, everything happens for a reason. Hey, there's a meaning here, there's a purpose. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean there isn't a beautiful plan here. Just because you
Mm.
don't see it doesn't mean um, that all things work together for not your good. So I grew up,
Right.
and I still believe this. Like I grew up with this idea that I am unconditionally loved and that all things work together for my good, and not in a conceited way like everything serves me, but in a way that no, there's an order to the universe, and its natural order is towards human flourishing. um, and my responsibility here is to help others flourish. And so I don't know, it's just been ingrained in me this way, and this keeps my spirits high. And I also make it a practice to um, two things. One, express gratitude, like I'm genuinely thankful to be on this thing with you, but I'm also, there's plenty of medical, I spent most of my time with doctors, there's plenty of medical literature to prove that gratitude practices where not you express gratitude, but where you think about moments where you received gratitude, those do
Mm.
amazing for your mental. Those actually
Oh.
perform better than expressing gratitude. Is thinking about a
Oh.
time when somebody thanked you and thinking about it in extreme detail. What was the weather like? How did they thank you? What words did they
Mm.
use? That just fundamentally shifts your brain chemistry to being happier. But
Oh.
finally, the other thing that keeps my spirits up is, the irony of this all is actually like injecting myself with my medicine, because it's just this reminder that no matter how great my life is, no matter how healthy I am, if I don't do this, I will die and it will all be over. And so I literally, I'm about to do this after our thing. I put a needle in my vein, and I think, wow, like my whole life is here. How blessed am I that I just get to save it in this moment when it could be lost, right? And that is
Yeah.
just that, like, every. And so after you remove the needle from doing an injection, like, it'll start bleeding, so you got to like put pressure on it. and I need to put pressure on it for 5 minutes. And I spend those 5 minutes literally going like, oh my gosh, what is this life? How do I? And I that's my gratitude practice right there. Is like, wow, what did I just do? So gratitude is a huge thing. Oh, and finally, sorry, I'm maybe talking too much, but social
Not at
connection
all.
and community is tremendous. We are made for each other. I believe that. And actually, forget my opinion. Science. There's a study. I forget by whom. But medical study. By the way, pubmed.ncbi.nih.gov. Great website. Free access papers. There's this one paper on flies, and they were
Hmm.
checking how loneliness works biochemically. So they isolated some flies, said, you flies are quarantined, no social life for you. And what they observed was these flies, the isolated ones, had a buildup of a specific protein that was linked to not only loneliness but also depression, anxiety, misery.
Hmm.
And then I believe they replicated this with people, like human beings, and same thing. When we go extended periods of time without social connection, we our entire chemistry becomes toxic. We create a toxic environment inside, um, emotionally, biochemically, with hormones,
Hmm.
and we're just not our best selves. We assume bad intentions the more we're away from people, and
Hmm.
it's ridiculous. So to keep spirits up, I try to do at least one social thing a week.
Oh,
Ob-
amazing.
at least, but definitely do that more. And I would say, everybody knows that we need to eat healthy, we need to exercise. Cool.
Cool.
we need to we need to eat healthy, we need to exercise, we need to sleep. um, but I think the thing that we often don't think about enough is we also need social connection. It is a
Yes.
fundamental need, just like food and exercise, and we don't, and I do, and this keeps my spirits really high as well. So
Oh, damn. I cannot agree with you more on the socializing bit specifically. Oh my God. Especially in pandemic. I think we all experience loneliness and depression, but I feel like one thing that I realized about myself is like I am such a social person, and pandemic just like, oh my God. At one point I was just like, I cannot be inside anymore. I just need
yeah.
to go out. I just need to see people. No matter how safe I want to be, I need to expose myself so I can feel sane again because I was going
Yeah.
crazy inside.
And it's interesting. I think for the purpose of the listeners, we need to define loneliness, because a lot of people will think it's just being alone, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
actually,
not.
yeah. Like, for example, I think a mutual friend of ours. I'm going to out him as an introvert. I hope this doesn't cause any drama. But David Capiano, David Khurshid, one of the best people on earth. Total introvert, but also quite social. Like, he does all the stately stuff, ex-state stuff. Good friend of mine. But introverts just have, like, they reach their capacity higher, or
Right.
sooner rather.
Yeah.
But the true definition of the clinical, I should say, definition of loneliness is feeling unable to express yourself in a way that you connect with others. So it's
Hmm.
not being alone. You can be lonely in a group and you feel like, man, there's a bunch of people here and I cannot connect with them.
Yeah.
And this is why you see alcohol be this lubricant where it sort of loosens you up, and then you're like, okay, now I can express myself and connect with people. I get that social connection and I'm not so lonely. um,
Hmm.
and that hurts me a little bit, because I think if there's one skill that I will mentor anybody with this skill, if I'm able, if I'm allowed, if there's one skill, I'm so excited, I'm speaking faster than my mouth. If there's one skill that I think everybody needs to invest in, is the skill of genuinely expressing yourself so that you connect with another person. And it
Hmm.
will be awkward and there will be friction, because we are weird people as human beings.
Yeah.
But it pays, I'm sure you've experienced, it pays so much when you can
Yeah.
genuinely connect with another person.
Yeah. And some people may not reflect your energy back, but then that one person who does, oh my God, it's like a soul connection with them.
Yes. Yes. And indeed, it does keep your spirits up even in the face of life threatening illness. So,
Yes. Oh my God. I feel like we can talk for hours and hours, but on this high note, I should bring this chat to an end and ask you one final question before you leave, which is, has there been a goal that you've been working on and something that you want to work on in the next 30 days?
that's a great question. Yes. The goal I want to work on is, A goal that I wish more of us in tech would work on. So, for context, I was weaned in like toxic startups. I've worked most of, especially early in my career, like it was bad. Like there was not even like covert, like hidden racism, like, oh, we just won't give you a
Hmm.
promotion or something. It was like, oh, they used to call me poop boy. Literally, like, hey, you're poop boy because your skin's the color of poop, like this kind
Oh
of thing.
God,
Yeah.
disgusting. That's so bad.
There was I was weaned in, and I think above and beyond that, I was weaned in startup culture that when the pressure is on, then it's okay to be mean to people. That
Hmm.
we can either ship this fast and be mean to each other, or I'm kind to you, but we're delayed. Um,
Hmm.
so which one do you want? And of course, startups will say they want kindness, but will optimize for the other thing. So
Hmm.
I have this nasty habit of when there's pressure to ship something, I turn into a jerk. I do,
Hmm.
because this is the conditioning that I have. And some people will listen to this and be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so bad." But I think the vast majority of us who have had a tech career for a while have experienced this and have learned to be this way, but we're just not honest with ourselves to admit that it's a
Hmm.
problem.
There's a lot of
So
people
I
who act that way for sure. You're right.
Yes, and I recognize that in myself. When the pressure's on, when we need to ship, I will drop decorum in my communication. I will not communicate as kindly as I know I
Hmm.
should, because we need to ship. And I hate that. And it's something I want to fix. And that's kind of my goal for the next 30 days, to impose deadlines on myself and then be a nice person. And even like delay the deadline. It doesn't matter, because there is no world where kindness is less
Yeah.
important than being on time. And that's something
Right.
I want to put into practice. So
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's such a great goal. I feel like that's a goal that I've never heard anybody say it out loud, but it's so like, it's so apparent. Like, um, and you notice this with other people as well, even if it's not a deadline or something, they feel that because everybody must be on their high game every single day at work, they've got to jerk so that other people can be at their high game. And it's so important to say, like, we're not working in jobs where, the world is going to end if we don't ship this.
exactly.
So but people are going to feel terrible if you're a jerk to them. So for them, it may be, like you're causing them so much trauma and mental illness. But it's so important to be kind every single day. And I'm so glad that you shared this goal. This was such an important goal. I feel like it's such an important thing that people don't talk about. And the first step of fixing something is awareness and
Yeah.
bringing that into intention. So I'm so glad that so glad that you shared this.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm serious about it because I want to be a positive impact on people. I would also shout out Elizabeth Duck from Crab Nebula for coaching me on this. She's a fantastic person. So
Oh, awesome. Well, Tejas, thank you so much for thank you so much for coming. I was going to say having me. Look at me, I'm like already zoned out. Thank you so much for coming, Tejas. This is so wonderful, so inspirational.
thank you for having me as well.
Bye, Tejas.
Bye.